And so he's going to tell us about the 3-minute thesis. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions. And if we have a little time at the end and you want to stick around, we can always set some personal goals for you as well in terms of what you want to work on in terms of taking things up a notch.
All right, well, good afternoon. I am not going to talk to you about communications, but I think that everybody here should be commended for actually recognizing that communication is a very important part of what we do every day. I need my slides. And so I've been... That's okay. I've been communicating in terms of giving lectures and various kind of presentations for probably close to 25 years now, maybe even a little bit longer. And so I still was taking notes here today because I figured that you can always learn something new. And so I'm here basically, that's the very end of my talk. I apologize. Okay, so what I'm here to talk about is an opportunity for everybody to actually hone some of their communication skills. We can hear about some of the techniques, but the 3-minute thesis, or 3MT as we call it, is something that will allow you to actually practice and put to the test some of your communication skills. And so I think many of us in the room might have heard about it before, but some of us haven't. And the 3-minute thesis, it's been around for about 10 years now. It was invented by a small group of faculty and students in Australia at the University of Queensland. And since that very first competition, it was realized the benefits to students mostly, but also to the faculty that were mentoring the students, and certainly for the institution as well. And it caught on like wildfire. It spread across the whole planet. So now there's several hundred at least universities that hold local competitions, regional competitions, and there's even international competitions for the 3-minute thesis. And so what is the 3-minute thesis? Essentially, it challenges you to get your thesis research that you're doing and digest it or package it in a way that you can communicate the essential ideas of it to a general audience. So not necessarily a scientific audience, an educated audience, but for all intents and purposes, a lay group. So most of us are familiar with talking to our colleagues, to our mentors, but many of us are challenged when it comes to relaying the importance of what we do on a daily basis to people that are not in the same field. And so the way you communicate it, you get the idea of why you're doing the work, what is the question you're asking. They have to understand that, a lay audience. And in addition, they have to understand what the purpose of doing that is. How can they benefit from it? What's the impact of the work? And lastly, that is kind of challenging, is you have to get this across in a way that's compelling so that they can actually get the passion and enthusiasm that you have for being a graduate student and doing this kind of research. And most students, it sounds fairly straightforward, but most students are challenged because it's out of their normal experience. And it's really challenging because you have to do all of this within 3 minutes. And you don't get to have a nice PowerPoint presentation all organized. You have a single slide that's static and no props or anything else. So it really is a challenge. So I'm here to basically try and recruit people a little bit and say, so how can you benefit from joining or participating in the 3-minute thesis? And so there's 4 points that I've come up with. The first two actually, you can benefit from just by attending some of the training workshops that lead up to the competitions. So the first one, of course, is that you'll develop a very useful communication skill set, and that's going to enable you to discuss your work to people sitting next to you on the airplane or in the elevator or what have you, a little bit outside of your experience. And that could be really important, particularly in your field, because if you're able to effectively communicate the central ideas of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis that's more technical, then you have also the ability to sell it to a reviewer of a manuscript if you're trying to get it published. You have an opportunity to sell it to a grant reviewer if you're trying to get that grant published. And also, if you're not into that kind of part of academia, then at least you can sell it in terms of selling yourself and what you're capable of to a future employer. The second two are really more important if you actually join the competition. Meaning you can participate in the workshop, but not everybody will make it through the preliminary round. If you do make it to the final competition, then each person gets an edited high-quality video of their performance, and that's really kind of neat because you can attach it to your CV. You can attach it. I have had students before who have put it in their email signatures, so everybody that they send an email to can click on it and see them performing at their best. And this can be really useful to attract, invited speaking opportunities, and or other things that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Lastly, if you can get into the competition, there are some financial prizes, which I'll also talk about a little bit. But you don't have to listen to me. Listen to some previous participants tell you about it.
One word, I would say rewarding.
It's a unique experience.
A fun learning experience.
Throughout graduate school, I've sought ways to enhance my skills, not only to speak to experts, but also to speak to general audiences. And the 3MT was desirable to me because it allowed me not only to hone the skills to present my research at an expert level, but also to speak to a general audience.
Every student who participates does so for different reasons. For mine, it was because the career track I wanted to go into was education, and I wanted to get a feel for public speaking in a different type of setting. But then other students, even if they want to stay in the career field or if they want to go into industry, it's a really good experience for getting up and talking in front of a large group.
Certainly it's important for the students, but being able to see the student come in not so much interested in presenting something, but just being able to understand what they're doing in a sort of a different perspective.
So during the time that I was preparing my 3MT speech, I was also doing a lot of job interviews. And folks would say very often, Grace, explain your research to us. And what they were not looking for was a 30-minute discussion about the in-depth analysis of what I've been working on, but rather really a kind of an elevator speech about what I have been working on for the past couple of years.
So my advice to anyone who wants to participate in this contest is believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, everybody will believe in you. At the beginning, I have been told that it is not easy to survive in this contest. You are a native English speaker. I admit that it is not easy, and the language barrier was a little bit hard for me. But by practicing, I can do it, and I think everybody can do it.
The payoff is tangible. When you can see the difference in their personalities when they finally get their 3MT together, and then they're excited to present that to other people, and then they get really excited by it. And so it's a really kind of a fun learning experience, and it's a fun teaching experience for the same reason. Okay, so these were the most recent contestants. I have one more short video of their winner of our inaugural contest.
Particularly in high-risk patients. So now that I've told you that this drug that we're normally accustomed to treating erectile dysfunction in men may actually be a way to prevent colon cancer in men and women, when the moment is right, we may all be asking our doctors about Viagra. Thank you.
For 3MT, I think as a graduate student of any level, I think all students should actually participate in it because it helps you get out of the weeds of your project and see the bigger picture, to see how potentially it can change the practice of medicine. And going through the entire competition really afforded me just like a better understanding of my particular project. And oftentimes it's small steps that we create in labs that can ultimately be far-reaching. And I think there's nothing more empowering than knowing that what you're doing in the lab, whether it be pipetting to looking at slides under a scope, there is a larger picture beyond your project and a whole set of people that can benefit from it. So I had a lot of opportunities afforded to me just by participating in the 3MT competition. So as a student, they actually record the video and you have your own edited version of the 3MT. And I was able to send that and use it as part of a resume for several different opportunities. So two that I can just think of off the top of my head would be one where I had the opportunity to participate at Capitol Hill, where we were basically trying to go to speak with government officials to ask for funding, NIH funding. And essentially what they were looking for were for scientists that were able to express what they do in the lab to a general public audience, because that's who we're talking to. And another opportunity that I got, which is coming up soon, is to work with the Dr. Oz show and as a medical student liaison. And that job entails basically being able to take something that's quite complicated, scientifically complicated, and being able to digest that into a form that's easily reachable to the public. And I think showing them the video of the 3MT really afforded me those two opportunities, but actually participating in 3MT helped me really pinpoint what were the necessary points to get something across to a general public.
All right, you've all heard it from the real participants. Who wants to work on the Oz show? Stressful environment, I hear. So I did tell you there was also some prizes associated with it. So the graduate school is generously donating for the winner, the first place of the final competition, $1,000. And this is your own money to spend on whatever you want. It's not allocated to his travel or something like that. Second place winner gets $500, and the People's Choice Award gets $250. And this can actually go to either one of these as well. So you can make up to $1,250 for 3 minutes of your time. It's a pretty good deal, actually. So how do you sign up? Everybody wants to sign up. So remember this email. If you've got a phone right now, you can send a quick email to that, get back to your office or wherever it is you work. Send an email to 3MT at Augusta just saying, I want to participate this year. And that'll get you onto an email list where we can communicate with you in terms of telling you more about when upcoming workshops are, sending you some materials and calendars and whatnot, how to get involved. So sending an email to this is the first step. Ultimately, usually before the new year, 2019, we'll also require this entry form. And this entry form asks 5 questions that basically break down the contents of a 3-minute thesis into components that are shared by all of them. And oftentimes students have a hard time filling this out. If it's a good learning experience, then that growth is always a little challenging. And so in order to facilitate filling this form out and helping you to develop your 3-minute thesis, we've designed several workshops that will enable you to do that. And so there's 4 of them. Each of them are spread out. So here we are here. They're spread out every 2 weeks. They're an hour long. They'll all be held in a roundtable kind of a format in the School of Graduate Studies, the conference room. I hear that they'll provide lunch to some of these, since these will go from 12 to 1. If you can pick up the important information after 10 minutes, then you can leave. And so it's not like a really serious time commitment. If you can attend all of these, then you're guaranteed to have a pretty competitive, at least in terms of the content, 3-minute thesis, and you're certainly going to learn a lot. If you can't, you can only make a few of them. There is opportunities also, if you're part of that email list, to actually get some one-on-one help as well. And so the judging criteria for the final competition, it's certainly content is a huge part of it, meaning how you're conveying or what that information is that you're conveying. Is it understandable? but also you're judged, or the judges have to score on delivery style, your stage presence, and how you actually deliver the material. And so for that, we also have a couple of workshops. So again, usually you don't need to send in that actual entry form until the end of December after Christmas. But in January, there's 2 additional workshops that will help you fine-tune the content, maybe help you put your slide together, as well as work on some of the delivery, like one-on-one, some of the delivery techniques that were talked about today in the communication part of it. So sometime in February, there's going to be a preliminary round. So this is closed door. There's usually 5 to 6 judges from various departments on campus. And so from that one, we look to have 5 contestants emerge, and then they'll participate in the final competition, which should be by the end of April sometime. Okay, so lots and lots of time to practice, lots of time to work on your content, just a few workshops involved in helping you get trained. And so that's all I have in terms of the 3-minute thesis. If you have any questions, also please direct those to the 3MT email address. Any questions? No? Okay.
I would just really encourage you all to think about this. I've judged it. It is fabulous. One of the 3-minute thesis winners is actually going to present to the Board of Regents for the University System of Georgia when they have their board meeting here, talking about her research. And it's just a really awesome opportunity for you to get that little elevator speech about the important work that you're all doing.
If I could actually take a few more minutes, I actually have 2 more slides that I was only going to give if there's time. So I want to see some hands here. Who would like to see a demonstration of how a 3-minute thesis training can be effective? Show of hands, yes, you want to see it? Okay, about half. The ones that didn't raise their hands, you're either shy or you can leave, is fine. And so I'm a biomedical scientist. I work on cancer-related projects. So this represents some data that probably a fraction of you are going to understand, but I'm going to spend in probably 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to explain this data as I would in an official presentation. And so this data came from my students' own research in their dissertation, and this is Bianca Islam, the one that won the first 3MT competition. And so after that, I'm going to show, so she would explain it in the same way I would, and then after the 3MT, you get to see her whole 3-minute thesis, which is, of course, 3 minutes. And so my laboratory is interested in the ability of increasing cyclic GMP levels in the intestinal epithelium, because we think that it's able to reduce carcinogenesis, at least in mouse models. And so we've demonstrated that blocking its degradation with phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors is able to increase cyclic GMP. And we've tested this on 2 different mouse models of colon cancer. The first one here is a colitis-associated colon cancer model that represents patients with ulcerative colitis. And in these animals, we give them azoxymethane, which is a mutagen. And then we follow this by dextran sulfate sodium in the water, and that induces inflammation that ends up being chronic. And after several months, you can see here that they get some polyps or tumors forming largely in the distal colon or rectal regions. But when we put sildenafil in the drinking water throughout the whole procedure, then you can see that there's a reduced number of polyps. And this is shown quantitatively on the right here, where this is the number of polyps per animal. And then when we give them sildenafil throughout the whole time course, it cuts the tumor burden in half, or tumor multiplicity, number of polyps per mouse. And so we have already published that increasing cyclic GMP with sildenafil can also suppress colitis. So we're interested in determining whether this was the mechanism by which we could inhibit polyp formation. So what we did was we put the sildenafil in throughout this inflammation cycle, and we saw that actually it had no effect. So we thought that the inflammation wasn't what was driving the suppression of cancer. So we put it in earlier, just in this mutagenesis phase, and we were really surprised to show that it is actually almost effective as having the drug throughout the whole time course. And so this led us to believe then that it was the drug is a cyclic GMP is affecting very early stages of carcinogenesis. And to test that, we used another model that's completely independent of inflammation. And this one, they get spontaneous tumors or polyps forming throughout their small bowel. Shown here is the jejunum and ileum. And so when we added either sildenafil or another molecule drug known as linaclotide that's capable of increasing cyclic GMP by binding to the receptor guanyl cyclase, GCC, both of the sildenafil and linaclotide were able to effectively suppress polyp formation in this model as well. And they're also both able to do it by the same degree as in this other model. So taken together, it's strong evidence that cyclic GMP suppresses colorectal cancer, and we know that it suppresses the early formation stages, because if we look at the overall size of the tumors formed in the presence of these drugs, there's no difference. And so we're excited to see this work in humans. All right, so that's kind of the science part of it. Now let's see what a couple of months of 3MT training can convert that into.
I'm sure there's not a person in this room who hasn't heard of the wonders of the little blue pill shown behind me. You may have seen commercials telling men that when the moment is right, they may want to ask their doctors about Viagra. Well, have you thought about the women? My research aims to show that this little blue pill may truly be a wonder for both men and women, because we believe that Viagra may be able to prevent colon cancer. Colon cancer is the second deadliest cancer in the United States. In 2017, it is estimated that over 50,000 people will die of this disease. That's nearly a quarter of the population of Augusta. What many of us may not realize is that our lifetime risk of getting colon cancer is about 1 in 20 for both men and women. So for every 20 people in this room, one of us may have to face colon cancer in our lifetime. These odds could be worse. Perhaps if a mother, a father, maybe a brother or sister was diagnosed with colon cancer. People who suffer from inflammation in their intestines, such as Crohn's disease and colitis, have an even higher risk. And unfortunately, there are those among us that are born with faulty genes. And for them, the question isn't, will I get colon cancer? It's when. Currently, your doctor's toolbox has very few treatments for colon cancer, which is why the best way for us to fight against this disease is through prevention. So our laboratory has found that when we give mice Viagra in their drinking water, it increases a special chemical in their colons called cyclic GMP. And we believe that this changes the colon in a way that protects it against inflammation and cancer. So we have two models. We have one mouse that experiences chronic inflammation and another mouse that has faulty genes. These two mice mimic people in our population that are at higher risk of getting colon cancer. My results show that when we give these mice Viagra in their drinking water, it reduces the number of tumors by 50%. So while we don't know exactly how Viagra is doing this, our laboratory hopes that one day we can offer yet another drug in your doctor's toolbox to help fight and prevent against colon cancer, particularly in high-risk patients. So now that I've told you that this drug that we're normally accustomed to treating erectile dysfunction in men may actually be a way to prevent colon cancer in men and women, when the moment is right, we may all be asking our doctors about Viagra. Thank you.
All right, that's all I have. So hopefully, I think everybody can see the dramatic difference. The second one is much more understandable. If you sign up at the 3MT at Augusta, then we'll send you some links to some other really good videos as well. Thank you.
Dr. Lee, we're having a good follow-up question.
Yeah, so, and I won't keep you much longer, but you already know she won, right? You know she was good. Why did she win? What did she do? You know, you've seen the first guy today, which was a train wreck. You saw the second speaker, which was better. You saw Bianca. What was it about her speech, do you think, that caused her to win? Now that you've heard Dr. Hayward talking about the content, and I've talked a little bit about nonverbal, What did she do that was so effective?
Seeing as how I'm not medically minded at all, she made it so that I could understand it. It was just basic terminology, and she broke it all the way down to language that was easy for me to decipher.
Mm-hmm. What else did she do that was good?
She made the connection with the audience and, using Augusta and parts of the audience so people could maybe visually or think more about the numbers she was talking about.
Did she do anything that was all that exotic or looked all that challenging? Right? She made it look effortless. A lot of her delivery made it seem effortless. I say that to say to all of you, you can all do this. Right? With some training, taking advantage of some of the seminars that they offer, some of the opportunities, every person in this room could deliver a highly effective 3-minute thesis. Now, some people, may perform better than others. You kind of get out of it what you put into it. But there was nothing that she did that we couldn't help you learn through these sessions.
Thank you. And again, you're always welcome to the workshops. We hope you would compete, but even if you don't, you can come and pick up some skills as we go.